Hello my friends and welcome back to the channel. I certainly was not alone in holding S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2 among my most anticipated games of 2024. Seeing such a legendary franchise prepare to release a brand new game 15 years after their last major release was such an exciting prospect, and I had been nervously anticipating S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2 for about as long as we've known it's in development. Now I wouldn't call myself a S.T.A.L.K.E.R superfan or a purist of any kind, but Shadow of Chornobyl definitely holds a special place in my heart, being the first full game that I ever really played on PC way back in like 2008, and it was the first game that I ever tried modding. That game kind of sparked my infatuation with survival games, and honestly after playing it, my tastes were never really the same. It suddenly became harder to accept what passed for survival in things like Bethesda's Fallout games on the consoles, which just kind of felt like Stalker Light. Fast forward many years through a crippling escape from Tarkov addiction, and there I was staring down the barrel of the Stalker Gamma installer, wondering what could possibly have people so hyped over a mod pack for a game series that was closing in on 20 years old. 300 hours later, and I finally emerged from the zone victorious against the Monolith, Sin, and ISG, and I had an unstoppable craving for more. I just needed more Stalker injected into my veins in the highest possible concentration. And so the waiting game truly began. S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2 had a troubled development, complicated both by conventional game development woes and uniquely modern problems like, being developed in an active war zone. For my part, I was patient and largely pretty hopeful. The developers, GSC, reassured us at every turn that not even artillery strikes would stop them from making the game that they wanted to make. A true modern sequel to the Stalker games that became legendary icons of old school PC gaming. Sure, I had my doubts, but they weren't really doubts about GSC or their vision. My main concern came from Microsoft being involved, to be honest, because over the last decade, they've proven time and time again that they can somehow mess up a sure thing with incredible consistency. Well, I've seen it now, and it seems like any hesitation that I might have had to jump aboard the hype train was completely unfounded. GSC cooked with S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2, and they delivered us a tasty treat that's managed to pull off the almost impossible task of modernizing an old formula while keeping enough of the original recipe intact. S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2 is exactly what it says on the tin. It's not a poor imitation, it's not cashing in on the name without any of the sauce. It's Stalker, but 2, and so far I love it for exactly that reason. I'm seriously blown away by how they've managed to modernize Stalker without diluting it so much that it's unrecognizable. The animations and graphics are beautiful, the movement and gunplay are really pretty satisfying, and there's honestly a really impressive compromise between old school and new school game design that I think will allow this game to sit pretty well with both old head PC gamers and the Fortnite bros. One of the most noticeable improvements is how well the enemies are animated, especially the mutants. They're so much more fun to fight than I remember, especially things like the bloodsuckers. So far in the 8 or so hours that I've played, these sneaky death machines have been the cause of most of my deaths, but they've also been some of the most memorable and intense encounters that I've had. They aren't that different in design or function from their original concept, but they just feel smarter and more dangerous. Their attacks feel more deliberate and punishing, their movements feel less random and more calculated. Take this fight here as an example, where I ran into a bloodsucker inside an underground laboratory complex, and it used the interconnected hallways to constantly flank me and reposition, so I was never really sure what side it was coming from next. Got some bad things happened in that bathroom. Fucker. The way you get kind of like paralyzed and stunned when they scream. Oh shit. Dude, I don't want to know what these things are like to fight on veteran. While the small mutants like dogs are still just as annoying to fight as they've always been, after fighting the bloodsuckers, I am so looking forward to encountering stuff higher up the food chain like controllers, burers, and giants. I cannot wait to see how much more intense they are in the modern zone. And while I won't say that human enemies have the smartest AI that I've ever seen, I will say that they are still much more satisfying to fight than the stalkers of the past, simply because they're better animated. I've been fairly impressed so far by the way that they move, how they seem to have weight and inertia to their movements, and especially how they react and recoil when being shot. It feels like there's a lot more feedback to the combat, and at least from a visual standpoint, it's pretty immersive a lot of the time. Now, I will admit, as someone who got reintroduced to the series through the Anomaly and Gamma mods, I wasn't really sure how I was going to react to Stalker in its original form, more as a cinematic survival experience focused on a story, with free roam as an optional extra. Gamma created sort of a perpetual loop for survival nerds, where the exploration and upkeep of your character was much more important than the story, and that loop was fiercely addictive. So I was kind of concerned that the story focus of Stalker 2 might not hit for me in the same way. But what I didn't consider was how much immersing myself in the world and lore through those mods would create an intense attachment to the zone, and set me up perfectly to digest a more carefully constructed and presented story about this place that I'd fallen in love with. All it took was doing a few of the side quests and some of the main quests in the first zone to make me realize that a lot of care was put into making this game feel epic and compelling. Now maybe I'm just a cynic, but I can't really remember the last time I sat through an in-game cutscene and thought to myself, holy hell, that was awesome, I want to see that again. But in Stalker 2, I find that happening over and over again with each new cutscene. Oh. Did we just punch each other in the balls? The voice acting, at least the Ukrainian voice acting, which I highly recommend you switch to, is pretty amazing. On top of that, I swear these are some of the best first-person cutscene animations that I have ever seen. So it's safe to say that so far, having completed the first zone and just moved on to the second, I'm hooked. I'm buying what they're selling, and I just want more of it. But of course, it's not perfect. Performance is definitely an issue for a lot of people, and stability for some players leaves a lot to be desired. Plus, from what I've heard, the experience on Xbox is not really that good, and that kind of sucks. So far, I've been lucky. I haven't had a single crash or bug that required a hard restart, but I know that's not the case for everyone, and that really sucks. Performance-wise, I'm happy with how it's running for me at 1440p on high settings, but I also have a fairly powerful setup, so I empathize with people who just want to play but their system can't handle it. That shit sucks, and it sucks to hear that people are struggling with it. For me, I would say my main gripes so far are around the inventory system, the gear upkeep system, and the lack of character skills and upgrade paths for stuff like a backpack. The inventory is pretty passable, but it lacks some quality of life stuff such as being able to pick up stacks of items with a single click, leading to a lot of double clicking or just hitting take all and then dropping unwanted stuff. It's not the end of the world, but it gets really annoying double clicking on everything when looting double digit bodies. When it comes to equipment upkeep, I'm kind of salty that they didn't copy a lot more from the Anomaly or Gamma mods, so repairing your gear is basically just a matter of paying a fee and then everything's back at 100%. While high tier weapon and armor upgrades do seem to require specific parts and niche components, repairs just cost money. This is fine, it cuts out a middleman in a lot of cases, but there was something special about finding a full durability part in Gamma and tucking it away in your bag because you knew you would need it later and you were going to feel great when you could just pull it out of your bag and put it in your gun. And finally, I really think it's a shame that we don't seem to have character skills in Stalker 2. Maybe I missed something, but I don't see a skills tab anywhere, and I think it would have been a huge step forward for the RPG side of Stalker to have a modernized skill system for us to improve our character in new and exciting ways. But that being said, I'm loving the game so far, and I cannot wait to dive in and get through the campaign, then start over on veteran and do it again, and then start over with mods and do it all a third time. What do you guys think? Have you been enjoying it so far, or are you waiting out the first couple weeks of performance problems to get a better experience? Let me know your thoughts on Stalker 2 down in the comments. Thanks for checking out the video. I've got a link to my Twitch channel in the description if you want to come check out my first playthrough. And until next time, stay safe out there in the zone, Stalkers.